This is a Social Work News special report with Chief News Anchor Drew Mafason.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread, then whipped them all soundly and sent them to bed. 4 simple lines with staggering implications. For more on this late breaking story, we turn now to Social Work News investigative reporter David Prater. Hello, I'm David Prater, coming to you live from outside the high top high rise, where social workers have been busy trying to learn more about the old woman and her cadre of children. Social workers first learned of the situation after an anonymous caller, known only by the pseudonym Mother Goose, reached out to Child Protective Services to report suspected child abuse. Let's listen in to that phony phone call now.
Hello, this is Mother Goose. My name is definitely not Bertha. I don't care what Jacob Grimm says in his so-called fairy tales. Now listen. North Carolina General Statute 7B-301 states, any person or institution who has cause to suspect that any juvenile is abused, neglected, or has died as the result of maltreatment shall report the case of that juvenile to the director of the Department of Social Services. You know, North Carolina is one of only 4 states where every person is a mandated reporter, although social workers are mandated reporters in all 50 states, D.C., American Samoa, Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Well, according to the Children's Bureau at the Office of the Administration for Children and Families, at least.
Upon receiving the call, social workers immediately sprang into action. Drawing strength from the 2021 National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics, social workers arrived on scene employing the 6 core values: service, social justice, dignity and worth of the person, importance of human relationships, integrity, and competence. By Mother Goose's own admission, the old woman didn't know what to do. During the time of Mother Goose's original report in 1784, child-rearing approaches were quite different than modern-day tactics, and Nike was only a goddess. Lacking appropriate skills and appropriate knowledge, the old woman may simply be falling back to the maladaptive practices of corporal punishment she received during her Dickensian upbringing. The situation will be fully explored by forensic social workers, who will try to assess the level of harm within the household, while Child Protective Services social workers, employing universal positive regard, will seek to connect the old woman to parenting classes and supportive services. A more recent report, received in 1901, stated that the old woman never struck the little knee-highs, but rather gave them some broth with plenty of bread, then kissed them all fondly and sent them to bed. With their primary goal to support the old woman and her family, the social workers elevated the needs of the fantasy family above their own self-interest and prejudices. Careful to avoid countertransference and maintain consummate professionalism, the social workers knew that to understand how to be of service to the old woman and the Chuck Taylor children, they must first understand their plight. Community-based social workers are meeting with the old woman to perform a biopsychosocial assessment, while intensive in-home specialists work with the children. However, the Gander Granny wasn't done with her spectacular speculations. We return now to Mother Goose.
If my assessment is correct, these poor dears have experienced at least several adverse childhood experiences: neglect of their physical needs, emotional abuse, and physical abuse. Perhaps the situation is worse than I fear. What other ACEs might the children have been exposed to? Were they given the boot by their parents and left high and dry in their grandmother's galoshes? Is there alcoholism, substance use, or a history of incarceration in the family? The CDC website shows the frightening correlation between ACEs and negative outcomes later in life, reporting that a person with an ACEs score of 6 or more lives, on average, 20 years less than a person who experiences no adverse childhood experiences. These young people will certainly need cognitive behavioral therapy with a trauma-informed lens. That's why I called the social workers.
There are many forces at work here and many unknowns. Why are these lads and lasses living in a loafer? Is the old woman the sole caregiver of the children of the clog? What has brought the impoverished family to the point where they cannot afford bread? Employing a person and environment perspective, social workers seek to understand the social causes behind the family situation and to connect the family to resources to mitigate the issues. Is the old woman receiving Social Security income? Is she on health care and Medicare? Do the children have Medicaid? Medical social workers at nearby hospitals are standing by to navigate the family to the appropriate resources if needed. SNAP benefits and WIC benefits could help to address the concerns of malnutrition, while connection to a HUD-funded housing program could get the family out of that shoe and into stable housing. Case managers have already gathered their applications and reached out to their contacts at various agencies. The foremost goal of social workers on scene will be to prevent any further harm from occurring. It's too early to tell the depth of the damage dealt to these dear Doc Martin denizens, but now that social workers are involved, hope is as high as a pair of platform stilettos. Drew, back to you.